Eleanor hadn't intended to bring another animal into her life when she stepped into the overcrowded shelter on that chilly autumn morning. Her work with Global Fauna Guardians had taken her to every corner of the world, rescuing elephants in Thailand, rehabilitating sea turtles in Costa Rica, and advocating for endangered species in the Amazon. She was no stranger to the chaos of animal shelters, the cacophony of barks and meows, the sharp temps of disinfectant mixed with pet dander, the frenetic energy of creatures desperate for attention. But today, something felt different, like an unspoken weight hanging in the air. The shelter volunteer, a young woman with tired eyes and a name tag reading Clara, greeted her cautiously. "We've got a room you might want to see," Clara said, her voice low, as if sharing a secret. "But I have to warn you, it's not easy. Most people can't handle it." Eleanor's curiosity piqued, though a familiar pang of dread settled in her chest. She'd seen too much suffering to be naive about what lay ahead. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice steady despite the tightening in her throat. Clara hesitated, glancing down the hallway. "It's where we keep the ones who, well, the ones who aren't likely to make it out of here alive." She led Eleanor down a narrow corridor, past cages filled with hopeful eyes and wagging tails, to a small, dimly lit room at the far end of the building. The door was plain, unmarked, and most of the staff avoided it. The air around it seemed to hum with sorrow. "Are you sure you want to go in?" Clara whispered, her hand resting on the doorknob. "Once you see them, it sticks with you," I'm sure Eleanor replied, bracing herself. She'd faced poachers, oil spills, and mass starvation in wildlife sanctuaries. She could handle this. Inside, the room was a quiet graveyard of hope. 13 cats, each in their own small cage, stared out with eyes dulled by time and neglect. Some were skeletal, others matted with fur that hadn't been groomed in months. The air was thick with the scent of illness and despair. "Most of these cats have been here for years," Clara said softly. "People are scared to adopt them. They think they'll get sick too, or they just don't want the heartbreak." Eleanor's gaze swept the room, landing on a frail tabby. With silver-gray fur streaked with black, his coat was dull, his eyes cautious but piercing, as if he could see straight through her. Before she could move closer, he scrambled out of his cage, left open by a careless volunteer, and climbed up her legs with surprising strength. His paws wrapped around her neck in a desperate, trembling hug. "Oh," Eleanor gasped, tears prickling her eyes. The cat's warmth pressed against her, his purrs vibrating with a need that broke her heart. "That's Shadow," Clara said, her voice heavy. "He does that to anyone who shows him kindness. Been here 3 years, too old, too sick. Mostly, nobody wants him." "How long?" Eleanor asked, her voice cracking. She already dreaded the answer. 3 years in this room," Clara repeated. "He's got maybe a month left, if that." "Seizures are getting worse. Seizures." Eleanor's hand instinctively stroked Shadow's back, feeling the sharp ridge of his spine. "Is anyone treating them?" Clara looked away, ashamed. "We do what we can, but the budget's tight. Most people just see a dying cat." Something inside Eleanor shattered and reformed in that moment. Shadow pressed his face against hers, his purrs a quiet plea against years of abandonment. "I have to go," she whispered, though every fiber of her being screamed to stay. It took Clara and another volunteer to gently pry Shadow's paws from her neck. His eyes, wide and trusting, seemed to beg, "Don't leave me. I can't take a cat with leukemia," Eleanor muttered to herself as she walked back to her car, the cold air biting her cheeks. But even as she said it, she knew Shadow had already claimed a piece of her soul. Clara's voice followed her. "In all my years here, I've never seen him cling to anyone like that." That night, Eleanor couldn't sleep. Shadow's eyes haunted her, those deep amber pools filled with a trust she didn't deserve. She tossed in bed, her husband, Mark, snoring softly beside her. Their 3 children, Leela, 12, Ethan, 9, and Sophie, 6, slept soundly down the hall. The house was peaceful, but Eleanor's mind was a storm. "My Mom, you've been crying again?" Sophie said at breakfast, her small brow furrowed as she stirred her cereal. "I'm fine, sweetie," Eleanor lied, forcing a smile. But she wasn't fine. Shadow's desperate hug replayed in her mind, his purring a siren call she couldn't ignore. Mark noticed her distraction too. "You've been off since you went to that shelter," he said over coffee, his tone gentle but probing.
"What
happened? There was this cat," Eleanor began, then stopped. How could she explain the inexplicable connection she felt? A cat she'd known for mere minutes had burrowed into her heart, refusing to let go. For weeks she tried to move on. Her work with global fauna guardians kept her busy coordinating rescues, writing grants, planning campaigns. But Shadow's face invaded her dreams, his eyes pleading, "Why did you leave me?" She woke in cold sweats, her heart racing. One evening, after a particularly sleepless night, she broke. "Can we take him as an office cat?"
does?"
she asked Mark, her voice trembling. With hope and fear, just at the rescue headquarters. He wouldn't be here. Mark's face hardened. "Absolutely not, Eleanor. We've got 2 dogs, a hamster, and your work already takes you away half the time. You said he's sick? Can't take that on? But he's dying alone in that room," she pleaded, tears spilling over. "Nobody cares about him. It's not our problem," Mark said, his voice firm but not unkind. "We can't save every animal, El. You know that. But love, as Eleanor would learn, turns even the most rational into fighters." The next morning, her hands trembling, she called the shelter. "Put Shadow on the next transport," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos in her heart. "Are you sure?" Clara asked, disbelief coloring her tone. "It's been weeks. I've never been more sure," Eleanor replied. As she hung up, a reckless thought crossed her mind. If this ends my marriage, at least I'm leaving for someone as soulful as Shadow. Telling the kids was a gamble. Leela, ever the skeptic, groaned. "Another pet? Seriously, Mom?" Ethan, with the bluntness of a 9-year-old, asked, "Is he gonna die soon?" Sophie, clutching her stuffed bunny, simply stared with wide, hopeful eyes. "Maybe," Eleanor admitted, her throat tight. "But he deserves to feel loved before he goes." The 6-hour drive to pick up Shadow was a journey through doubt. What if he doesn't remember me? She wondered, gripping the steering wheel. What if I'm making a mistake? But beneath the fear, a stubborn hope persisted. Maybe the tests were wrong. Maybe he's not as sick as they think. She took Shadow straight to the vet, bypassing the shelter's drop-off point. "Run every test," she told Dr. Patel, a seasoned veterinarian with a knack for delivering bad news with compassion. "I need to know exactly what we're dealing with." The results were a gut punch. Feline leukemia and FIV2, of the worst diagnoses a cat could receive. "He's double positive, doctor," Patel said, removing his glasses to clean them, a nervous tic Eleanor would come to recognize. "His immune system is compromised. He's fighting on multiple fronts." "How long?" Eleanor asked, her voice barely above a whisper. 2 months, maybe 3, if we're lucky, Dr. Patel replied. "But with seizures and his condition, it's unlikely he'll make it much longer." Days later, Shadow's condition became undeniable. He cried out a guttural wail and collapsed in a trembling heap. "Something's wrong," Eleanor told Dr. Patel over the phone, her voice frantic. "He's falling over, making these awful sounds. Bring him in now," the vet urged. The drive to the clinic was a blur of panic. "Please don't let him suffer," Eleanor whispered, stroking Shadow's trembling body. The diagnosis was brutal. Severe epilepsy, untreated for years in that lonely shelter room. "Are you saying he's been having seizures all this time and no one noticed?" she asked, tears streaming down her face. "I'm afraid so, doctor," Patel said softly. "These don't develop overnight." Lenore's resolve hardened. "I'll do anything to keep him comfortable," she vowed. "But I won't let him suffer." Mark was less forgiving. "This is exactly what I was worried about," he said when Eleanor explained the mounting vet bills. "We're going to go broke keeping a dying cat alive?" "He's not just a dying cat," Eleanor snapped, her voice fierce. "He's family." But Eleanor, a mother who had battled postpartum depression after Sophie's birth, knew what it meant to fight for hope in the darkness. She refused to give up on Shadow. The treatment plan was grueling, phenobarbital twice daily to control the seizures. Biweekly vet visits for B12 shots and weight checks, special diet, and probiotics to repair his ravaged digestive system. Shadow's accident, small, dark puddles on the carpet became a daily challenge. "This is disgusting," Mark grumbled. "The house reeks." "He can't help it," Eleanor shot back. "His body's healing." It took patience, love, and industrial-strength carpet cleaner, but slowly, Shadow's health stabilized. His seizures lessened, his coat grew shinier, and his eyes regained a spark of life. Through it all, he remained the most affectionate creature Eleanor had ever known. "Mom, why does Shadow follow you everywhere?" Sophie asked one day, watching the cat trail Eleanor from room to room. "'Cause he knows I won't give up on him," Eleanor replied, the truth dawning as she spoke. Shadow refused to be relegated to office cat status. He claimed a seat at the dinner table, perched regally on a chair like a human. "It's like he's been waiting his whole life to be part of a family," Ethan said, laughing. The house was reorganized to accommodate Shadow's needs. He got the upstairs, the living room, and a screened-in porch, as his years in the shelter had made him wary of other cats. "This is insane," Mark muttered. "We're rearranging our lives for a sick cat." "He deserves his own space," Eleanor said firmly. "After what he's been through, he's earned it." Each morning, Eleanor woke with a knot in her stomach, checking Shadow's breathing. "Good morning, my beautiful boy," she'd whisper, relief flooding her when his chest rose and fell. "Morning, Mama," she imagined him replying. 2 months. Stretched into 6. "I can't believe he's still here," Dr. Patel said during a checkup, shaking his head in awe. "His will to live is extraordinary." "How is this possible?" Eleanor asked, clinging to hope. "You said 2 months. Sometimes, animals find a reason to keep going," Dr. Patel said, studying Shadow's chart. "His white blood. Cell count is still low, but it's stable. The seizures are controlled. Whatever you're doing, it's working." 6 months became a year. Shadow's story spread through the veterinary clinic, earning him the nickname Miracle Cat. Vet students began attending his checkups, scribbling notes as Dr. Patel explained. "This is holistic care at its finest environment, medical treatment, and emotional support working in harmony." By the 2nd year, Shadow's story was published in a veterinary journal. "We're studying what allowed him to defy the odds," Dr. Patel told Eleanor. "The consistent medication, the specialized diet, and the emotional bond you've built, it's all part of it." The 3rd year brought vet students from across the state, eager to witness Shadow's resilience. "This is what happens when you treat the whole animal," their professor said, gesturing to Shadow, who purred contentedly on the exam table. In the 4th year, the impossible became routine. "Stopped being surprised by him around year 2, Dr. Patel admitted, smiling. "Now, I just admire him. His body's learned to coexist with the diseases. It's not fighting a war anymore. Negotiated a truce." But the true miracle wasn't just Shadow's. Survival it was what he did for Eleanor. Her battle with postpartum depression had left scars, moments when the world felt too heavy to bear. During her darkest nights, Shadow would curl against her, his purring a lifeline pulling her back from the edge. "I don't know what I'd do without you," she'd whisper, burying her face in his fur. Here was a cat who had been abandoned by the world, yet chose to love without reservation. "He rescues me every day," she told her mother over the phone. "I thought I was saving him, but it's the other way around." When Shadow's final days came, his body too frail to continue, Eleanor stayed by his side. "It's okay, baby," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You can rest now. You've been so brave." In his last moment, he reached out, pawing gently at her cheek. "I love you too," she said, her voice breaking. "Thank you for choosing me." In her grief, Eleanor posted a simple video on social media, a montage of Shadow's best moments chasing a laser pointer, napping in a sunbeam, sitting at the dinner table like a king. "I just want people to know how incredible he was," she captioned it. The video went viral, amassing 12 million views and 30,000 comments in days. "The whole world is crying with me," Eleanor told her family, stunned. People shared stories of their own rescue pets, inspired by Shadow's journey. Shelters reported a surge in adoptions, particularly of sick and senior cats. Because of Shadow, I adopted a cat with FIV, one commenter wrote. I named him Shadow in his honor. Shadow's story became a movement. Eleanor started a blog, Shadow's Light, chronicling their journey and advocating for unadoptable animals. She spoke at veterinary conferences, sharing how love, care, and determination could rewrite an animal's fate. Shelters began implementing Shadow protocols, holistic care plans inspired by his treatment. This isn't just about one cat, Eleanor wrote in a widely shared post. It's about giving hope to those everyone else has given up on. When asked what she'd say to Shadow if she could, Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. Think! You, she said. You were my greatest gift. Every animal deserves what you had. Shadow's legacy lived on in the cats named after him, in the shelters that changed their policies, and in the hearts of those who chose to love the broken and forgotten.
Oh.
They won't be with us forever, Eleanor told anyone who would listen. But in the time they have, they give us more love than we ever thought possible. Thanks so much for listening. See you in the next video. Have a great day.